Why avoidants struggle to move on? There's a myth around avoidant attachment people is that they move on easily, they don't care about the breakup, they don't suffer from the breakup. Let me tell you, this is not true. This is not true if you have had a meaningful relationship, if you know your partner loved you, if they just told you it's not working or they feel overwhelmed, they will have a hard time moving on, and let me explain why after the jingle.
igetmyexback.com. Everyone deserves a second chance.
So, what is avoidant attachment style? Something that forms in childhood. What avoidants value is independence. They resist intimacy. So, when I say it's formed in childhood, is that this idea of opening up, maybe they were not punished, but they realized early on that if they were to open up, they wouldn't gain anything. And so the default position or the coping mechanism is that if I open up, I will not get what I want. Therefore, I don't open up. I don't feel vulnerable. I don't allow myself to be vulnerable because it feels that I will be weak. And therefore, I keep things to myself. Therefore, I rely on myself. This is where I feel safe, right? So they struggle with vulnerability, as I discussed, also with emotional expression. Perhaps it's also because their parents were quite distant. And if you know your partner's parents, maybe you know that the family dynamic is that they never talk to each other. When they're on holidays, they are doing their own thing on their own, right? And they keep things superficial, that they don't talk, they don't hug, they are not. So there's many signs that helps you understand where your partner is coming from sort of a construct, from how they were raised, and what we call in attachment theory, they are working models. Okay, so basically the way we see life, the stories we tell ourselves. And so that's the construct. That's why they fear dependency. If I depend on you and you depend on me, that's too much for me. And they see obviously closeness as a loss of freedom. For people who have an anxious attachment style, closeness is essential. I can't live without you, right? Avoidance, that's the other end of the spectrum. Closeness, if we are together, if we have to do everything together, that means I can't do what I want, right? The balance, the answer is right in the middle. In relationship therapy, we call it like interdependence. You don't want to be codependent. You don't want to be highly independent. You need to develop an interdependence, accepting that the other has a life, but also have the ability to connect at a deeper level, and always going back and forth in a healthy manner. If you have any question, if you struggle to figure out about whether you have any chance of reconciling with your avoidant, whether this person has the potential to make you happy, have a look in the description. There's a quiz that I put together. It's a very new quiz to assess specifically avoidant partners. If you are trying to get back with an avoidant partner, if you are trying to make sense whether your partner is avoidant. So emotional detachment and repression. So what will happen is that avoidant will suppress their emotions. We all have emotions. The difference with avoidant and the rest of the world is that we tend to suppress emotions. There's no point, I don't feel the need, I don't see the need of being emotional. What do I gain from that? And so with this belief in our mind, we feel like, yeah, I suppress emotions, I put them on the side, right? But the thing is, when you suppress emotions, and it took me a while to figure this out, you create unresolved feelings. So it could manifest in your body, it could manifest in other areas in your life. You will sort of distract yourself. One thing that I was quite prone to is like procrastination, for example. Because you don't deal with the problem itself, you will procrastinate, you will focus your attention on something else. And so what will happen is that they will potentially have a hard time to process the breakup, because they wouldn't want to look at they see it as a kind of worms, right? They don't want to look at that. And so the denial will linger over time, and it will take a bit of time for them to process the breakup, way longer than anxious people and secure people. That will prolong the healing process. They will assume I'm fine. They will feel I'm fine, but deep inside, there's something impacting them. There's something that they want to address, that they put on the side, that they put behind, but that will linger And that will sort of drive a form of dissatisfaction. And that's what you have to assess. That's what will bring you guys back together. Because if they don't miss the relationship, if they don't feel that they want a relationship in their life, yes, you're wasting your time. And it's not so much about him or her, I say him, but it could be her, being avoidant. It's also about their ability to recognize that they want to be in a relationship. And you could be that person. And they have to do a bit of work. We'll discuss that in a second. And so what will happen is what we call cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is when we have two experiences happening in our mind at the same time. So the dissonance for the avoidant is that they want to be in a relationship, but they fear intimacy, right? And you have this on and off sort of internal conflict that will sometimes translate in the communication on and off. One day they'll say, oh yeah, I'm super happy to see you. And they will cancel. They'll be super engaged in the conversation when you see each other, and then after they will ghost you or not reply to your messages. It's because of this independence and the idea of if I'm not independent, if I'm in a relationship, I lose my independence, right? And so that will hinder the closure. That will affect the closure. That will affect this idea of like, okay, let's take action. Let's do something. Let's overcome this fear. Right? And again, they are thinking, I don't feel any emotion, but actually those emotions, again, will cause them to have these erratic sort of behaviors or communication with you. Another driver is the fear of vulnerability that we quickly discussed before. They don't want to discuss feelings. After a breakup, it's the first thing you want to discuss. How much I love you, how much I miss you, the pain that I'm going through, and so on and so forth. This is not the kind of topic of conversation you need to use with an avoidant, because they don't want to discuss this. They don't know how to discuss about those things. You know, in childhood and when they were younger, they didn't learn this language. Okay, and so because of that, they will have a hard time processing the breakup and moving on. You know, again, they will. Because they don't have anyone to talk to, they don't have any this idea of reflecting and venting and listening to their emotions, that will prolong the healing process. And that's also why they will avoid deep connections. You know, avoidant like to keep things very superficial to protect themselves. So the vulnerability will play a part in prolonging the phase of moving on. What you have to understand is, again, this outside versus the inside. What you see is not the reality. What you see from them, the signs, what they do on social media, etc., doesn't necessarily translate how they really feel. If they're detached, that doesn't necessarily mean they're not interested. Because if you were detached, you will show it clearly. And if you were not detached, you will see it clearly. But for them, they like to keep things secret. And maybe when you were together, it was very hard for you to read them. So it's going to be the same after the breakup. They will never go and cry to their best friend, to their confidant. They will never do that. And so you have to understand that they keep things to themselves. They would really have a hard time accepting that there's something wrong, that they're sad, that they're depressed, and they have a hard time dealing with the breakup. So they keep things to themselves. And they will wear a mask. They will sort of pretend. Okay? So if you feel unmotivated, you feel, I'm wasting my time, etc. Don't take what you see at face value. It's more complex than that, unfortunately. So what do they do to cope with the breakup? So they will use distractions, obviously. So it could be procrastination on dealing with what matters, hobbies, work excessively. They could be good coping mechanisms. So hobbies, learning something or traveling, etc., are good coping mechanism. Work excessively, not necessarily, but it's really about like, okay, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to feel like this. Therefore, I will do everything that I can to, keep myself busy, keep my mind busy. And that will delay the emotional processing. That will prolong the healing, as I said before. They need to face emotion in order to really heal and understand from this breakup. And so they have to do it on their own, first of all. You should be the one explaining them. You shouldn't be the one showing them, supporting them. They have to do it on their own, because in a way, as they feel safe being on their own, it's also the best way for them to reflect. If you are trying to influence them at this stage, you're going to make it worse. Okay, so understand that they have a hard time moving on because they are pushing things away, but at some stage they will feel this necessity to look at what's going on. I have few people calling me, they're avoidant, and they tell me like, I know there's something wrong, I need to work on that because I keep on, breaking up with my partner, I keep on having difficulties building a sustainable relationship with my partner, so help me out. I have a lot of people calling me because of that. So how can you know whether he or she moved on already? You have to assess, first of all, the meaning of the relationship. You are avoidant until you meet that person, right? And so this fear of intimacy is until we meet this, when we experience this relationship, I was scared of intimacy, but I've touched something, and actually, this is what I want. I just need to remove the blocker. I just need to let go of my fear. Also, assessing the growth and fixed mindset. If you're dating someone who feels like there's nothing wrong with me and I will never change, it's going to be very hard for you to build a sustainable and healthy relationship, because your partner will never ever meet your needs, right? Because they broke up with you assuming that they can't meet your needs, assuming that it's going to be too hard for them to manage a relationship. If they have a fixed mindset, things will remain the same. So as I said, take the free assessment if you're not sure. It's totally free and it takes 3 or 4 minutes. So you have an idea. You also have, depending on your results, a few tips and some free content to help you. I'm doing this to help you because I know it's so hard and confusing to deal with avoidance. You can ask my wife. And so the idea is to provide clarity and help you move forward, help you, from this point, I feel stuck. I don't know what to do. How can I progress? How can I move forward? And if you do 1 inch every single day, you're progressing. I don't want you to stay stuck, stagnated, feeling resentful, feeling stuck in the past, dwelling on the past. No. The idea is like gaining clarity, gaining insight for you to progress every single day. So what's next? As I said, don't stay in the dark forever. You have to go to contact if you're dealing with an avoidance after a breakup. If after this phase of no contact, you still feel like, okay, but I still need answers, I think there's still potential, I think it's fine to reach out. But when you reach out, it's not because, don't think like, okay, I'm reaching out because I want to get back together. I'm reaching out because I need answers. You just reach out to allow them to say what they have to say. Don't have any expectation because you will be disappointed because they won't give you a lot. But you just open the door, right? It's important when you reach out, and something that I always ask my clients when we decide about breaking a contact. I was breaking a contact. You have to reach out having no expectation. After a breakup, we want to reach out. We want to hear from our ex because we feel, if I hear his voice, if I read from her, I will feel better. That's not the point. The point is just assessing whether there could be a future. Assess whether this person has something interesting to say, whether the way, understanding their experience of the breakup, where they are, simply where they are. And then from this point, you can decide whether there's a future. But don't feel like, if I reach out, I will finally feel better. That's not going to happen. If you have any question, and I know it's confusing, and I know the problem making videos is that it's obviously very generic. If you have any question and your situation is very specific, have a look in the description. There's a link to book a discovery call with me, 15 minutes to gain clarity. Usually in 15 minutes, I won't solve all your problems. That will give you potentially some hints and insights that you might have missed throughout this process. Don't hesitate. Give me a call, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.